Hello, I'm Elizabeth Taylor, the Executive Director of the National Health Law Program. I'm speaking today with Jane Perkins. Jane is the Director of NHeLP's powerful enforcement and litigation team. For decades, NHeLP has been a leader in enforcing Medicaid, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and a range of other civil rights laws. We have enforced health rights in the courts and in other forums. And by health rights, we mean the right to care that meets people's needs, the right to care that is provided free from discrimination, the right to care in language that is accessible, and the right to care that is not cut off or denied illegally. Jane, do you want to talk a bit about how and why NHeLP's enforcement and litigation work has been so powerful over the years?
Thank you, Elizabeth. I really think there are three things. When you ask me that question, there are three things that come to mind. First of all, the team that we have here at the National Health Law Program really has in-depth experience and expertise working not only with the substantive laws, but also litigating in federal and state courts. Secondly, we have long-standing, deep relationships with partners, national partners, but also particularly partners out in states. And we can talk a little bit more about that. And then third, we have, I think, a team-based approach that really places emphasis on collaboration, brainstorming. Nobody has a bad idea until we've talked it through kind of approach. Just to give you a few examples of how those three things have come together just recently. And as you pointed out, we've been litigating for going on 4 decades now, but with the Connecticut Disability Rights Protection and Advocacy Program, we recently obtained a nationwide injunction stopping the federal Medicaid agency from enforcing a Trump-era rule that was cutting people off from Medicaid coverage during the COVID pandemic. So this is relief that really is benefiting older adults and people with disabilities. With our Missouri Health Law Partnership, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that, the Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, we recently settled a case that has created and will improve coverage for children with medically complex conditions. A litigation team that we worked with in Wisconsin was able to get an injunction against states excluding gender-affirming care, and we got damages for the plaintiffs. And then with our North Carolina Health Law Partnership, the Charlotte Legal Advocacy Center, we recently settled a statewide class action case where we were able to get the state to revise its policies and procedures for making Medicaid eligibility determinations in ways that will ensure that they are timely and fair. It is a settlement that couldn't have come in at a better time as states are beginning to unwind from the COVID public health emergency and will be making Medicaid redeterminations, eligibility determinations for millions and millions of people, and this can serve as a model.
Jane, you talked a lot about the role of partnerships in our work. Throughout our history, NHeLP has had strong relationships with partners at the state level, state legal advocates, disability rights advocates, reproductive health advocates. In fact, that kind of collaboration has really been baked into NHeLP's DNA. And in addition, over the last few years, we've had great success with more structured partnerships that we have called health law partnerships. So I'd like for you to talk a bit more about those partnerships and why they've been so important to our work. I know that they were crucial during the previous administration in the work that we did to stop bad Medicaid policies, including the work requirements that the previous administration wanted to encourage states to implement. So tell us more about the health law partnerships.
That's right, Elizabeth. We keep mentioning health law partnerships. This is really the latest iteration of our work with state partners. And as you point out, our history is absolutely rooted in working alongside state and local legal advocates. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. We have been fortunate to receive funding from several foundations that is enabling us to make pass-through grants to state partners to focus on enforcement and litigation advocacy and policy advocacy that will address and avoid barriers to healthcare that can confront low-income people, people with disabilities, and people of color. Right now, we are in about half of the states, and of course, our goal is to be in all the states and the District of Columbia. These health law partnerships are instrumental. These are organizations that have, over the years, been steeped in policy and litigation advocacy at the state level. They know how their state legislatures work. They know how the executive branch works. They know how the courts work. And they're just terrific advocates and dedicated advocates. They are critical. Just to use what you referenced as an example, during the Trump administration, the president announced that he wanted to explode the Affordable Care Act and the expansion of Medicaid to adults living in poverty. And the way that they came to do this, or their idea of achieving this, was conditioning health coverage on working, which, when you think about it, that kind of gets it backwards. You need to be healthy to work. But we, along with health law partnerships in Kentucky, Arkansas, New Hampshire, and Michigan, were able to stop those harmful policies from hitting Medicaid people who need health coverage and who need health care. We ran the table with the litigation. We were successful in all of those challenges. But just because we don't have a Trump era challenge in front of us right now doesn't mean that we don't confront challenges, and that those another similar challenge couldn't be right around the corner in another state or even nationally.
Jane, we've announced that NHeLP is expanding our enforcement and litigation capacity. So, why now? And what does that mean? What are we going to do more of? What are we going to do differently? And tell us what challenges you and your team are seeing ahead.
Over the last 35 years, it has become increasingly difficult to engage in enforcement and litigation on behalf of low-income people, people of color, and even people with disabilities. And I guess, to put it another way, it's becoming harder and harder to keep the courthouse doors open. Right now, the U.S. Supreme Court is deciding a case that could further curtail enforcement rights or even eliminate them altogether, depending on how the court rules. And so that decision would really affect Medicaid and what Medicaid means in people's lives, because it really is private enforcement as opposed to government enforcement that has made the day-to-day difference in terms of Medicaid being there when people need it. I've been doing, I think another thing that comes to my mind, in addition to how litigation is more challenging is that I've been doing, as you have, I've been doing this work for years and years, and in recent years, the judicial branch has become more and more political, and judge shopping has become more and more overt and pronounced. And something is going on in this third branch of government that is different. And it's disturbing, and it's aside from its effects on democracy and how we operate as a democracy, it's having quite a harmful effect in cases affecting low-income people, people of color, and people with disabilities. So we are keeping our eye on the courts. We are tracking cases in a much more aggressive way than we have previously. We have started an amicus project so that we can weigh in where cases are coming through courts that, and we're not counsel in those cases. We are really being creative and trying to be creative with the approaches we are taking to enforcement and litigation, ensuring that where there are legal arguments to be made that haven't been made or haven't been made recently, but maybe good arguments to make, we want to make sure we understand them and are there to make them when it's appropriate. So the work that our enforcement and litigation team is doing, along with the health law partners and other partners such as disability rights, protection and advocacy programs, is really more vital and more challenging than ever. We want to be there to meet the need and to meet the challenge.
Thank you, Jane. There is a lot of work ahead, and I know that you and your team are going to be ready to meet those challenges.